Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but as always, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, don't hit that fast forward button. These are all companies that I used as an athletic director, and I really encourage you to check them out. So take the next 3 minutes, go ahead and listen to our shout outs, then listen to our guest's interview, and then go visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. We want to thank our friends at Huddle for their support. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I wanted a platform that was going to help all of our teams, and Huddle came through like a champ. All of our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided, and so will you. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users. Turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day. Things like scheduling, uploading rosters and scores, communicating with your stakeholders, with your state. How about athletic eligibility and clearance? Who doesn't do that every day? Home Campus does all of these things and more, does it better and does it faster. Go to homecampus.com to get started. That's it, homecampus.com. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Your student athletes and their parents are on social media. And if you're not creating content to celebrate your teams and promote your programs, you're really missing out. Go to Gipper.com. They're going to have you creating world-class content in seconds, and it's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com. It's used and trusted by over 4,000 high school and college programs. It's professional graphic design made simple. Gipper.com. We also want to say thanks to Snap Raise. If you've ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and ended up with little return on your investment, you need to go to snapraise.com. Hands down, it's the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school, tremendous success, and so will you. Go to snapraise.com. Check out their other great platforms, but if you're looking for a fundraiser, you found it. Go to snapraise.com. We also want to thank our friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to show off your school record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or display your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and take a look at their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to share your school's unique history and brag about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. We want to say thanks to Ohio University and their online Masters in Athletic Administration. This is an affordable online program, just 20 months. And when you finish your master's degree, you're also going to have 11 NIAAA leadership training courses under your belt to use towards your CAA or your RAA. To get started, go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters. We'd like to thank Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their scoreboards and their score tables in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com to get started. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. At my school, we use surveys for just about everything, for kids, coaches, parents. And the information that came back was incredibly valuable because it came from everybody, not just the complainers that we were already hearing from, but the 98% that support our program. Athletic Surveys is going to create a custom survey just for you. It's going to help you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're staying right here in Florida today, and we're going to be visiting with probably one of my oldest acquaintances in Florida Athletic Administration. We're going to be talking with Gary Pigott. Gary is a longtime athletic director, a coach, a teacher here in the state of Florida. We're going to hear about his career later on. He's currently the county athletic director in Alachua County, that's a Gainesville area, And we'll hear about that too. But Gary, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thank you, Jake. Looking forward to speaking with you today.
Well, again, you and I were talking earlier. I came to Florida in 2000 as an AD and a head football coach. You were working with our state association at the time. And that very first summer, so I guess it would have been June of 2020 or 2001, went to the FHSAA, our Coaches Association conference. We actually brought all of our coaches from Coral Springs Christian. You were there on behalf of the state. I met you. And as I told you, you encouraged me to get involved with the Coaches Advisory Committee. So I think I've known you as long or longer than just about anybody in Florida. So glad to finally get you on the podcast here. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. Maybe take us up through your own high school and college days, and then we'll take our first break. But what's the Gary Pigott story?
So I'm one of those few Florida natives that actually grew up in the state, born in Fort Myers, went to high school there, Riverdale High School, played some sports. Tennis was my main sport, probably. I dabbled in some football and basketball, but focused more on tennis eventually by the time I got to be later. Then I played a little bit in junior college, played at Indian River over in Fort Pierce, went over there and went to school and played tennis for a couple years. And then got my AA and went on to the University of Florida, focused on athletic administration. That was my major, and finished up there and actually interned as part of my degree with the FHSAA. And that's what started my career. I interned there. They hired me straight out of UF. I spent 23 years with the association, and certainly mostly in the athletic operations department. Did all of the various sports. I was a sport administrator, and like you said, worked with the advisory committees. So that would have been probably my first or second year with the football as the football administrator and working with the advisory committee when you and I met. So then, like I said, spent 23 years there, really enjoyed that a lot. And then after that, moved on and worked for Honig's, which is a officials equipment supplier, for a couple of years, did that. Then got into the school system. My wife's a retired teacher, so she kind of encouraged me to do that. Here locally, was an elementary PE teacher for 5 years. And then the last 2 years, I've been with the county district athletics, PE, driver's ed, and adult ed, which I knew nothing about when I first got this position, but I've learned a lot about. So it's been an interesting, enjoyable career.
Well, I want to hear more about your FHSA days in our next segment, but I want to go all the way back to growing up in Fort Myers. Now, people live in Florida, they know the changes that have taken place in the last 20, 30, 40 years. What was it like for you growing up in Fort Myers? Was it a big city? Was it ever a small town? What was that school experience like for you?
I mean, yeah, it was definitely more of a smaller town than it is now. Again, I've got a lot of roots there. My dad is a native of there. He went to Fort Myers High, which when he went to school, that was the only high school there. So when I was in Lee County, we probably had 5 or 6 high schools at that point. I always say Lehigh, which now has 2 or 3 high schools. All the Lehigh kids came to Riverdale at that point in time when I was there. So, it's grown a lot. There were 3 schools down in Naples. Collier, Naples, and Lely were the only 3 schools in Naples. So that whole Southwest Florida area has just continued to grow since I left it in 88, basically. And it's really mushroomed and gotten bigger. But Gainesville's kind of like that. We're a smaller, like I said, smaller area. University town, obviously University of Florida's here, and we have 6 high schools that play athletics. Actually 7 high schools. One's a technical school that doesn't play, but obviously now all their kids can go play at their home zone schools and those type of things, so they certainly participate as well. So anyways, that's a little bit about, but it's grown a lot. Every time I go back, it seems like they've built something else.
Oh no, absolutely. An orange grove or land's getting filled in for condos and apartments. Talk a little bit about your athletic career. You mentioned you played tennis at high school and also at the junior college level. What was that transition like for you? Obviously you had some tennis skills to play, collegiately. Did you come in and these are my words, did you come in and dominate right away? Was it a challenge to play at the JUCO level? What are your memories of that time?
No, it was definitely like most kids, in high school, you're kind of I was the number one player, and we weren't a fantastic team, but we were solid. And then you go to college, and everybody was the number one player on their team. So I typically played in the 2 years I was there. We placed the top six singles, so I was a 5 or 6 player most of my 2 years there. But we did qualify for the nationals one year. We got to go out to Tyler, Texas, and that was my big national championship experience, and that was a lot of fun. My sophomore year, second year there. So it was a good experience. The most interesting thing, or one of the more interesting things about that, was meeting. We had a lot of foreign players. So we had a couple guys from Sweden, a couple guys from Peru, one from the Dominican Republic. So it really expanded my view and experience with people from all over the world internationally. And then the girls team, which we always had some players from England and different places in Europe too. So that was quite an interesting experience as a college player.
Oh, no, absolutely. That sounds like a whole different podcast episode. We're gonna have to do that. Um, Everybody in Florida that knows Gary knows that you bleed, gator blue and orange. What are some of your vivid memories of that experience at that time when you were in college at the University of Florida?
Well, I was here when Steve Spurrier was hired, and Emmett Smith were here. So those two guys kind of dominate the 3 years I spent at UF going. But again, I didn't focus just on football. I couldn't believe they let us go to all these sports for free. So I mean, I pretty much covered everything. I'd go to football and men's and women's basketball and baseball and softball. And that's one of the things it's living here in Gainesville, the opportunity to experience not only the high profile sports, but all their sports across the board are so high level. I know you're involved in the track and do a lot of stuff with the track, and their track program, again, just won another national title. The men's has competed with the women's, and Mouse Holloway, who was at Buchholz for a long time before he went over to UF, was a high school guy who transitioned to college. So that's obviously a big part of my experience in living here is just taking advantage of all those opportunities to go see the high level programs that not only the high profile sports offer, but everything across the board.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I was just there, let's say a month ago, for the Southeast Conference track championships, and some of the meets that they host, they'll announce, that time is the number one time in the world. That jump is, the top 3 jump in the world. So it is a mecca for national and even international competition. We're going to take our first break. For our listeners, we're visiting today with Gary Pigott, longtime coach, teacher, and AD in Florida, and currently the county athletic director for Alachua County. That's in the Gainesville area. We're coming back with more, so please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We'd like to say thank you to Home Campus for their support of the podcast. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day. Things like scheduling, uploading scores and rosters, communicating with your stakeholders, communicating with your state. How about student athlete eligibility and clearance? Who doesn't do that every single day? Well, Home Campus does all of these things and more, and it does it better and it does it faster. To get started, just go to homecampus.com. That's it. Go to homecampus.com. We also want to say thanks to our friends at Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our parents loved the streaming services, and our athletes loved what it allowed them to do in creating videos, highlights, and other recruiting possibilities. Go to huddle.com to get started. Join the 8 million users turn your school into a huddle school?
Hey, Jake. Yeah, we use both home campus and huddle. Home campus is our athletic clearance process that, keeps all that information secure and allows parents and students to uh, submit all that information digitally. And then we just partnered with Huddle recently coming into this next school year, and they'll be doing all of our online platform. So we're looking forward. We signed a 3-year agreement with them to stream, in addition to all of the other things that our coaches use it for, but from the county level to do our streaming at both our stadiums and gymnasiums. So we're looking forward to that partnership.
Boy, I appreciate you sharing that, Gary. I'm going to go and ask you. There's a lot of, streaming opportunities out there, streaming services. What made you choose Huddle?
So I did quite a bit of research over the last year and a half or so in meeting with my colleagues, the other county athletic directors from around the state at various meetings. And one of the questions I was asking when doing that research is, pros and cons for different streaming services. And the one thing that kept popping up was that Huddle, the quality of it, and the sharpness of it, was what made it the best streaming option for us. So that's kind of where we're headed. Now we're going through all of the infrastructure process and getting that ready for the next school year. So that's been a little bit of a interesting task, but we'll work through that and hopefully get everything going by the start of our next school year.
Well, again, I appreciate you sharing that. I remember when we used Huddle at my school before I retired, the product was great, as you mentioned, and the customer service was also excellent. Just great stuff. For our listeners, we're visiting today with Gary Pigott. He is a longtime athletic director, teacher, and coach here in Florida. He's currently the county athletic director in Alachua County in the Gainesville area. Gary, you kind of took us up through your college career and actually your experience at the University of Florida. You had an internship experience with our state association, the Florida High School Athletic Association, that actually turned into your first job. Can you share a little bit about, those early years for you? You mentioned 23 years at the state association. What was that like? And maybe what were some of the changes that you saw in the association and in Florida during your time there?
Yeah. So again, I enjoyed all of my time at the FHSAA. Obviously, when you're the new person, you're the young kid coming right out of college. I was basically open to do whatever they had wanted me to do. I started probably the sport of wrestling is the first one I can remember. The weight management system and getting involved in that whole thing when it was still paper-based before we went digital. So I spent a lot of time with that and basically worked very closely both with Paul McLaughlin and Cecilia Jackson and going to rules meetings and over time, eventually they gave me some of the sports to help doing rules meetings and then, becoming a sport administrator, taking on a sport, which then, involved, playoff assignments and bracketing and working with the schools and doing all those things that the FHSAA is known for. And, the most important thing that I always, from when I started there and to when I left, and even now, I mean, really you're focused on the student athletes experience and trying to make lifetime memories for those students. They don't realize it at the time, probably, but we used to go to state tournaments every year, but I always tried to keep it in my mind and remind the staff that was working there that, this is just an event for us, but for those students and those coaches participating, this may be the only time they ever participate in a state championship, regardless of the sport. So, creating that lifetime memory and something that 10 years, 20, 30 years later, they'll still remember, and hopefully in a positive manner, whether they win, whether they lose, they were there. If you get to a Final Four in any event or in an individual event, if you're participating in the state tournament, even if you don't win it, it's something you'll carry on for the rest of your life, especially if that is the conclusion of your athletic career. A lot of people obviously our best athletes move on to college, and some, a very small percentage, at the pro level. And those are the ones who get all the publicity and make a career out of it. But so many student athletes, experience high school athletics, and those things that they learn, the discipline, the hard work, being a good teammate. That's one that's really gotten lost in more of today's world, is, sacrificing and being a good teammate and doing what's best for the team, not necessarily best for you, are just things that carry on the rest of your life. When you move on and get into a career, whatever it is, those characteristics and those experiences can really carry you to success in whatever field you choose. So that was always something that was real important for me, to remind our state tournament staffs about that reminder, because they can be long days. Obviously, when you're there for 12, 14 hours a day, multiple days in a row, it becomes a long day. But that 2 hours or that hour and a half of period of time that those teams or individuals are competing are what they're gonna remember the rest of their life. So I think that's something that I always tried to keep in mind and carry on through all my experiences there, to keep that at the forefront of what we're doing, because it can get lost in the day to day. And reminding yourself and reminding that staff around you that that's the reason we're here is really, really important.
Oh, absolutely. And again, in my 20 plus years here in Florida as a athletic director, as a football coach and track coach, as an official for basketball and track, and with both associations on the coaches advisory committee, the AD advisory committee, and with FIAAA, I've been able to work. Again, I'm not trying to brag about my participation. I'm just setting the stage. I've seen the FHSAA in action on a lot of different stages, and I always come away very impressed with the staff and the things that you talked about, that, we're here for the kids. We're here to make it a great experience. You guys, yeah, you did and continue to do a
Yeah.
great job. Gary, you were there for 23 years as under various titles.
Yes.
What were some of the changes that you saw over your time? And I'm going to say both good and bad under this heading. Every time I run into an athletic director from another state, um, usually we end up talking about Florida's current, very liberal, non-existent transfer policy.
Yes.
We already have the transfer portal at high school, at the high school level. So I know that was not something that the FHSA championed or approved, and does not to this day, but it's there because of our state legislature. So from your perspective, what were some of those changes in the world of athletics over that time you were at FHSAA?
Well, obviously, like you said, the free movement is a big one that's kind of continued. I mean, even to today, is still morphing. The other one that I really is specialization. Sports specialization has really changed over that time, and the impact of non-school programs on high school athletics. So all of the club type situations that so. It's always whenever I got an opportunity to talk to a parent, I would from the state level, I would try to tell them, let your kid play whatever sport they want to play. I just feel like the best athletes, when you look back, when you and Joe Maurer is one I just saw something recently on. Okay. When they talk about the value of playing different sports, different seasons, because again, it accomplishes two things. Number one, you're getting different sets of teammates, you're getting different coaches, you're using different muscles, you're not burning yourself out on one sport. It seems like today's society wants to make a student or a kid pick a sport when they're 7 or 8 years old and play that for the rest of the duration of their life, and not sample some of the other things that are out there. And again, I get that you can specialize, but I just think that the two areas of burnout and injuries because of using those same muscles over and over and over, especially when they're younger and trying to, their bodies are still growing and developing. By not playing multiple sports, then you're using the same muscles. So a pitcher or a softball player who's throwing that ball, 11 months a year from the time they were 7 or 8 years old, then we wonder why they have arm issues, when they get to be in high school. So and again, I think different teammates and different coaches, it just makes for a more well-rounded person, a more well-rounded student athlete. And it might expose them to a sport that they've never played before, that they realize, hey, I've got a love and I've got an interest in here. I just think that lack of sampling different sports throughout your, whether it be middle school, high school, I feel like that's kind of been a detriment over the last 20 years, but that's been the focus. Everybody's now pick a sport and you got to play that sport 10 or 11 months a year. You have your high school season and your club season and all that, where I feel like there's a lot of crossover type attributes. And like I said, it gives some of those muscles that you may use in a particular sport a chance to rest and recover when the next season. Because again, when I was grew up in Fort Myers, the multi-sport athlete. And again, he was an FSU guy. So I don't, but Deion Sanders, and I actually competed against Deion in Little League and both in baseball and football. He was a year older than I was, but he's a great, in high school, he played 4 sports. I mean, your best athletes back in the, 80s and early 90s, that's what they all did. They would play a fall, a winter, and a spring, and then start it all over. I mean, your best athletes just did that. So I think that sports specialization, I've really seen that happen much more over the last 20, 25 years. And, I get it. It's all about the college scholarship. And when I was mentioning about talking with parents, I would always say, if you took that money you're spending on club sports and put it in an account, you'd have your college scholarship money right there. But it certainly doesn't have the prestige and, everything that goes along with being a college athlete on scholarship. So, like I said, that's one of the things that I've really seen a dramatic change in my 23 years of the association.
Oh, without question, a huge impact. And it's interesting too. You bring up a couple of elite athletes that were multi-sport people, and a parent might say, well, they were just great athletes. My son or my daughter, they need to spend that time. Well, the research is actually pretty conclusive for whatever label you want to put on it: average, gifted, 6 different levels moving up to elite. The multi-sport experience produces better results in that sport that they like, whether it's, you can talk about the year-round sports, volleyball, baseball, et cetera. If they do other sports, they're going to be better in the sport that they love. And as you mentioned, only 6% are going to play at the college level. Let's make sure that we're having a great experience for those 94% that are not going to continue at the college level. We had a state, I'll say this, and then we're going to take a break. When I was at Maclay, we had a state championship boys soccer team. Great run, great experience. Every single one of those kids was a great soccer player, and not a single one played collegiately. Okay. They had a great athletic experience, and now they were ready to do other things. And I'm certainly not, downplaying the value of college athletics. I did, played collegiately, but it's not for everybody, and it's not the be all end all. But 94% of those kids are going to end their careers playing high school. Let's make sure they have a great high school experience. We're going to go and take a break. Great stuff today with our guest, Gary Pigott, the county athletic director for Alachua County right here in Florida. We're going to hear about that part of his career journey next. Let's take a quick break, talk to our sponsors. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thank you to Gipper for their support. Your students are on social media, and a lot of their parents are too. And if you're not posting content to celebrate your teams and promote your program, you're really missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. Their team will have you creating world-class marketing content for your athletic department in seconds, and it's so easy, even I can do it. Gipper's used and trusted by over 4,000 high school and college athletic programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made easy. Go to Gipper.com. Mention the podcast. You'll get a nice discount. That's Gipper.com. We also want to say thanks to Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and got little, if any, return on investment? Stop right here. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with tremendous success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms, but if you're looking for a fundraiser, you found it. Go to snapraise.com. We'd also like to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Take a look at their interactive touch screen. That's right, touch screen video consoles. It's also a great way to showcase your school's unique history and brag about your proudest moments. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Once again, our guest today is Gary Pigott, the County Athletic Director for Alachua County Schools here in Gainesville, Florida. Gary, coming into your role as a county AD, you certainly had experience in the world of athletic administration, but, what were some of the things that, you saw that, boy, this is really, they're doing this really well. What were maybe one or two things that you thought could be tweaked? And, what were some of the best practices that you tried to initiate?
Yeah. So when I got in this role a couple of years ago, basically the ADs had about, and again, there's 6 of them in this county. And interestingly enough, the year I started, we had 3 brand new ones. Most of them had coached at their school and been at their school for quite a while, but the three of the 6 were first-time athletic directors at their schools. So the main thing was to try to just build a rapport between those 6 ADs and share and kind of build some camaraderie with the 6 of them. So now we do 3 meetings a year. We do a fall. They basically did a kickoff meeting, and that was pretty much it most years before I got in this capacity. And now we try to do at least 3 a year, a fall, a winter, and a spring. 2 of the 3 are at least face-to-face. One, we typically do a Zoom just because of time and schedules. But trying to implement that sharing and that camaraderie and again, the sharing of information. That's what's most important, I think, whether it's locally in your county or even on a statewide basis, just getting that information and sharing that information professionally. That's why FIAAA and NIAAA are so important, because of that networking and that sharing. I really think you can learn a lot of things in those type of environments that help you on a day-to-day basis. Everybody has that grind. Everybody has that day-to-day where they have those big long days, and especially when you've got multiple sports going on at the same time that you're covering. And in our county, our athletic directors actually, they teach classes as well. So most of them have 2 or 3 classes they teach in addition to their AD responsibilities. So they're really juggling a lot of things and trying to be as supportive as I can for them by sharing information, by getting them information, as soon as it becomes available from whether it's a statewide mandate or state laws that change that type of information. Like this year, we had the new one with the requirement that first aid is now it's been there. I think all coaches have been required to do AED and first aid training, but it's now a state law they put in place that anybody paid or supplemented has to have that requirement every 2 years. So we're just making sure they have a tracking system in place and all of those things that they've been doing. But so things like that, just trying to keep them abreast on the newest information, because I know they're busy in their day to day. So any information I get, I try to share with them. And like I said, allow them opportunity to discuss and ask questions, so that they're most prepared, that they can share that information with their coaching staffs.
You know, professional development is one of those things that athletic directors love to do with their coaches, or the county ADs love to do with their building ADs, but it's so often they don't get a chance to do it because of all the management types of duties, the scheduling, transportation, budget, et cetera. That's so cool that you really got to focus on professional development. Um, you mentioned in the previous segment, talking with parents. What are some things that you share with your ADs? What are some things that they do, maybe at different schools, to try to, again, using the NIAAA's new course, partnering with parents? Uh, what are some things that they do to try to make that parent journey, more positive and less challenging? Anything stick out for you?
No, I mean, again, I think sharing of ideas, I think allowing those six athletic directors to give them some space to talk about those things. Hey, I'm having an issue with this. Here's what I do. I think me being the facilitator of that information, because they're the ones doing it day to day. They're the ones out there. I'm trying to get it. I try to be a good listener and hear about the areas that they're struggling with, and certainly sharing any type of district policies that we have that need to be emphasized or re-emphasized that they haven't been doing. And then again, trying to give them the tools that they can manage it, or listening to them. Certainly, I think all of our people do a real good job of communicating with our ADs. And we talked about athletic clearance, or, the home campus a little bit. I think that athletic clearance process has helped, for information to be available for parents 24/7, so they can go on there and do that and submit that type of information. That's always step number one, is get on, get all their paperwork done so they're eligible to be even to start participating, with all those incoming ninth graders or transfer students if they've come from another school. So that's, again, I just trying to encourage and allow opportunities for that sharing of information is the biggest thing I've tried to build and implement on the couple of years I've been here so far.
As you look at where the Alachua schools are right now, you mentioned off camera that you also are in charge of developing the middle school sports program, and that is not that's not something that is in every county. I'm going to ask a Captain Obvious question and let you expand. Why do you do middle school sports? And, what are some of the things that you think make your program unique?
Well, it's certainly a feeder program. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is to give those kids an opportunity to play at their schools. Again, we do three sports, boys and girls. So I call it six sports: boys and girls volleyball in the fall, boys and girls basketball in the spring. I'm sorry, in the winter, and then boys and girls soccer in the spring. So I talked about overlapping sports in this. So a student athlete in middle school in our county could easily play those three sports if they want to, if they have an inclination to. And, again, I have seen that. So as one of our best female athletes, definitely, I saw her in all three. She was a really good basketball player, but she was on the other two teams as well, and was more of a role player. But not having those sports overlap, it's a about an 8 to 10 game season, and then we do a county playoff after that, do seeding based on how they did in the regular season. The majority of coaches are, on campus, and they teach a subject area. And a lot of the coaches will do like volleyball and soccer, and coach multiple sports and help one another out. So I've enjoyed it. Again, I try to treat it like the state championship. I administer that sport, or those sports, the same way as I would have done for a statewide FHSAA sponsored sport. So like I said, we do tracking. I send out weekly standings where, you're seeing who's winning, who's losing, gather all those results from the administrators. And then, like I said, us work with the officials to make sure we have coverage and all that type thing. So, and then for our countywide championship, they obviously have middle schools, facilities that they play at. And then we always try to target a high school to have the countywide championship, to take them to a bigger venue, something that they're going to be working towards in the future, and try to give them that spotlight and that opportunity to play in a larger stage. And we of course invite the local media and all those type things. So it's been a fun, like I said, it's a little less pressure from my point of view. Obviously, but again, no matter if you've got athletics, you're going to have competition, you're going to have disputes and questions, but just on a little smaller level at the middle school level.
Oh, hey, those middle school parents, they get fired up too.
Sure.
Gary, we're going to do this at the end of the podcast also, but if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain a little bit, or just add you to their network, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
That would probably be my my email address. It's last name, first initial, so it's Pigott, Pigott, GV. Gary Victor is the middle initial, at gm.sbac.edu.
And we're going to go and give out that email again at the end of the podcast. But we're talking today with Gary Pigott. We're going to take another break. I know that's shocking to our regular listeners, but we're coming back with more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We'd like to thank Ohio University and their online Masters in Athletic Administration for their support of the podcast. The Ohio University Master's Program is an affordable 20-month, totally online program that focuses exclusively on athletic administration. When you're done, you're not just going to have a master's degree from Ohio University. You're going to have completed 11 NIAAA leadership training courses that can go towards your RAA or your CAA. To get started, go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters. We'd also like to say thanks to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Of course, we use it for home games, but we also used it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. Their products are tremendously versatile, and their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com to get more information. Sidelineinteractive.com. We'd also like to thank Hometown Ticketing for their support. Hometown Ticketing is the leading digital ticketing provider for schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more, but I'm going to. Go to hometownticketing.com. Their team will show you how to set up and sell tickets online, not just for athletic events, but for things like school plays and concerts, school dances, even graduation. And here's the best part. Every school gets assigned a dedicated client success manager that's going to provide you hands-on support every step of the way. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Gary, one of the things we try to do at the podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What are some things that you do in Alachua County with your athletic directors, or things that you've seen over your career that you would consider a best practice that you can share with our listeners?
There's two main things I would mention. We touched on it a little bit already. Professional development, I think, is a big one. Just, being involved in your professional organization, regardless of your discipline. Obviously in athletics, that's FHSAA, NIAAA, giving yourself an opportunity to discuss, to share, get more information about things that can help you. Most conferences you go to, there's not a, but I just feel like it's really, really important to go to those, to establish that network, to hear things that make you think outside of the box, that make you think of, I think it's real easy to get involved in the day to day and kind of get overwhelmed by that. But I think whenever you go to a conference, it gives you a chance to step back. It gives you a chance to network. It gives you a chance to look at things from a different perspective and talk about, things that you've never maybe thought about and how you could implement that at your school level, whether it be the county, whether it be your school base. I just feel like that's really, really important. And being in that flow of information that you get by being a member of those type of organizations. Otherwise, you're kind of just there by yourself, and it's real easy to get discouraged and not be able to think about things from a different point of view and beg, borrow, and steal. I mean, we've talked about that, something that's some schools been doing for 10 or 20 years, your school has never done. And if you do that there, it could improve things so much dramatically. A lot of it comes down to communication, but everybody's got a different situation. Like I mentioned in our county, we've got county ADs who teach 3 classes in addition to their AD responsibilities. And then they go to these conferences and they realize there are other athletic directors who have 2 assistant ADs and an athletic assistant that helps with all the paperwork and stuff. And they're doing that full time. I think it's good to get perspective on your particular situation and also kind of troubleshoot or gather ideas from outside of your norm that might help you do your job a little bit better and make you feel better about what you are doing. I think the other area would be organization. I've always been an attention to detail person. That's just my personality. I think as an athletic director, that's really, really important. And it's really important to kind of understand what your strengths are and then kind of find people who fill in your weaknesses, have other people, whether they're other administrators at your school, if you do have the opportunity to hire an assistant or assistant ADs, other coaches that are part-time to work with, to kind of do the things you like, to enjoy, keep doing the things you like, because if you do the things you don't like too long, you won't last in that profession. So again, I think identifying what your strengths are and what the things you are enjoy about athletics. Now, again, nobody enjoys 100% of everything, but making sure that 80% of 90% of what you're doing, you're enjoying, so that, and then you find other people to fill in those areas that you don't enjoy doing as much that they might enjoy doing. So.
Now, I love that expression, do the things that you enjoy doing. And I think most of us in athletic administration, we like what we're doing most of the time.
Yeah.
Gary, again, I said I was going to put you on the spot. The first 23 years of your career, you were with the Florida High School Athletic Association. Now you're back into, the school-based county role.
Yeah.
Where are you personally currently with your journey with the NIAAA and the leadership training courses?
Well, when I was at the association, Mike Colby was there, and he certainly has always been real active at FHSAA, and he offered the opportunity to do some LTI classes on a weekend. So several of us from the staff, as well as we opened it up to the state, and we had people from a couple hours away come in. And so I got my CAA certification at that point in time. Then I realized when I went to FHSAA this year, my membership had waned. I hadn't maintained it through all those years. When I was just teaching elementary PE, I didn't see a whole lot of need for it at that point, and kind of got away from it and involved in SHAPE, which is the professional organization for PE teachers. But then, after this year, I'm like, hey, I'm certified. Why isn't that noticed or not? So I looked into it, and then I realized, oh, okay, your membership's not active, so you got to get your membership. So I did that, shortly after the FIAAA meeting. So, I just feel like that's an opportunity, and, I'll explore moving forward, taking some other courses in conjunction with FIAAA meetings. I didn't, it makes sense now. They obviously do webinars and do online courses now that they didn't used to do pre-COVID. But I've always been a face-to-face person. I feel like there's a lot to get from that, networking, and that's why I feel like going to meetings is so important, and talking to people. This communication is great. It allows, a lot more communication, time and effort. It saves a lot on, travel and expense and those type things. But I'm kind of old school from that standpoint. I really enjoy the face-to-face and the interaction that you can have at face-to-face meetings. And I've really enjoyed getting back in those circles in my role as the county athletics person in Alachua County, to help to network with those other county ADs that I knew for years and years and years, and kind of lost touch for 5 or 6 years while I was doing other things, and getting back in those circles again. So that's been a lot of fun.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I thought you were a CAA. I guess I should have asked that earlier. Now this is for you and also for our listeners. Gary just gave me a great opening. He mentioned the NIAAA offers the LTI courses via webinars this summer. And I'm actually going to be part of the teaching faculty for the 2 middle school courses that are going to be offered later this summer. So Gary, there's a great opportunity for you to knock out 2 middle school courses to help with your already thriving middle school program. And for any of you listeners, in addition to the middle school courses, which are great, by the way, there's a number of other LTI courses. So go to NIAAA.org, take a look at the LTI offerings, sign up for a webinar, and hopefully we'll see you this summer. Well, Gary, this has been great. Seeing you again. We connected at FIAAA, as you mentioned, but always great to hang out with you. But we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you certainly know your way around the world of high school and middle school athletics, but we're going to take our final break here from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor this segment. When we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. So let's take that final break, and when we return, we're going to see what Gary Pigott puts into his new athletic director toolbox. We want to thank Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. At my school, we use surveys for everything, for coaches, for teachers, for parents, even for student athletes. And the information that came back on these surveys was incredibly valuable because it came from everyone, not just the people that we were already hearing from, the complainers and gripers, but the 98% that supports your program. And when we were meeting with a frustrated parent, that information was incredibly valuable, as I said, as well as when we're meeting with our principal or your school board, because you've got your finger on the pulse of what's happening in your program. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey. It's going to help you take your athletic program from good to great. athleticsurveys.com. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with an old friend, Gary Pigott. He is a certified athletic administrator, and he's the county athletic director for Alachua County Public Schools, and that's right here in Florida in Gainesville. Tremendous background in athletics, but right now I'm going to challenge him to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let him put 3 things in the toolbox. So Gary, what 3 items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
The 3 things I would say would be organization. Really, really important to be organized in all your, whether that be coaches, whether that be budgeting. I think it's real important to have different areas that you designate that you just have to do in an organized manner. Otherwise, you're going to miss something. Transportation, I missed that one. Transportation, security. There's so many pieces to hosting events. Having that checklist and being organized on a daily basis, your to-do list every day. Whether you have home events, not home events. I know, obviously most schools, you're going to have a weekly meeting with your other administrators as far as coverages and all those type of things. And that's just one of a dozen pieces. So I think being really organized and having those spreadsheets or checklists has been really important for me over the years. Number two would be self-care. I touched on that a little bit. I think it's real easy in the world of athletics to get burnout. I've experienced that a little bit myself. You want to be at everything, but depending on the size of your school, you just can't do it. I mean, to try to be everything, everywhere, all the time, you can do that for a period of time. But after a few years, you've got to figure out, a balance. And I think spending time with your family, making sure, school people are always guilty of that. They spend so much time with their colleagues and other people's kids that sometimes they forget about their family and their kids. I do think we talked about shifts. I do think that's one positive shift I've probably seen over my 25, 30 years is I do think that administrators and school people in general have been much more open and understanding of spending time with your kids and your family and even involving them in your job, when they can in the evenings or when you've got coverages and those type of things. I do think that's been more of a positive shift that I've seen that it's more acceptable now than maybe it was 20 or 30 years ago to have, your kids and your family around. I think it probably was, but it just seems like it's gotten more and more inclusive from that standpoint. So I think self-care, spending, balancing your work duties versus your personal life is real important. And then one thing that's been very helpful to me, we talked about things I'm trying to implement, is a Google share file. Creating a share file for, in my case, it's for athletic directors and a school-based person, it would be for your coaches or your staff, so that all of these forms and things that you need to create a share file that everybody has access to, and sharing that information so that you talk about it at a meeting, and then you need it, or a coach needs it a month later, and they don't, go to the share file and getting them, building that information base and making it available to your staff and the people you work with, I think is really, really important.
Well, you probably saw me scribbling all those down. I love all of them. It doesn't surprise me. I guess it makes me feel good that we continue to see organization as one of our most frequently mentioned tools, and self-care, finding there's never a balance, but integrating that work and home life. I love it when people talk about those. That was an area that I wish I would have done better as far as the family component during my time as an AD and a coach. I was there, but I could have done a lot better. And the tech stuff, I think that's another change that we've seen over the years. Is it's no longer a luxury or something foreign. It's right there. I mean, you're using technology and those shared folders, just one aspect of that. Great stuff. Thanks for sharing that. Speaking of sharing, one more time, Gary, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and add you to their network, or just pick your brain, and listeners, I think you got a great resource here. What's the best way that they can do that?
It would be via email. I'm also on LinkedIn, Facebook. I mean, all of those things. I'm certainly open to, sharing and partnering with anybody in either of those categories. My work email address it's Pigott, so last name Pigott, GV, Gary Victor, at gm.sbac, School Board of Alachua County.edu. So that's.
Well, again, we'll put that information in the show notes as well. Gary, thanks again for taking time out of your busy schedule to share with our listeners, and hope you have a great summer, and all the best for the coming school year.
I appreciate it, Jake. Really enjoyed it.
Well, we enjoyed having you. For our listeners, we enjoy you tuning in. And just a reminder, We upload all of our Zoom recordings to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day, trying to share best practices and athletic director stories. So we hope you come back for another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time.